Good morning, everybody. Don't ask me what. This is the pollinator, and it's Monday, September 16th, and it is my birthday today. Today I am 67 years old. I know I don't look it. Maybe with these bags under my eyes, I look it a little bit, but um, again, don't ask me why I'm making this video on this day, because this is kind of a tough subject, and I have purposefully delayed creating it. I need time to think about whether I really wanted to do it at this time, and I think it's time to reveal this one. It's called, I'm going to call them what I call them, but then at the end, actually in the description of the video, I will call them what their name really is. So it's Massachusetts misinformed parents who wrote an article about Griffin Sivret. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, but you'll see that in the description as well. And, you know, I was urged by some trigger-happy people over on a certain platform to not make this video. I'm not sure why, except their reading comprehension was a little off, and they were blaming me for making some kind of a inaccurate statement about why Griffin Sivret ended up passing away. But here's what happened. I was on a completely different platform, and people were talking about anti-trans issues. And some young man in there dropped a comment saying, is anybody going to talk about this guy, this young man named Griffin? And where he dropped it was a group of people that are probably 99, 98, 99% transgender women. And so nobody took him up on it. In fact, they didn't even make a comment to that guy. And I didn't either. I made a comment in that post after I created my own post about this on Substack. And there will be a link to that article. Actually, I wrote 2 articles. There will be links to those in the description as well. So what happened was, he asked about if anybody's going to talk about him and what happened to him and why he passed away, or that he passed away. So I did a search on the internet for him, and the only thing I found at that time was a link to a Massachusetts misinformed parents article that was very poorly written. Now, of course, all of the, I think that they are very akin, excuse me, if not associated with Moms for Liberty. Both of the Moms for Liberty can be looked up. I don't know about the article I found, but Moms for Liberty can definitely be looked up. They are total anti-trans white Christian nationalists. Most people know by now that these people aren't really Christian. They're just hiding up underneath that name, or they are Christian and but they're extremists. They're using their quote-unquote religion as a political hammer to enact legislation all across this country urging governments, local governments, to create bills against us. And way too many states right now. I can't even tell you all the states that they're trying to do things to us in, but it's vast. It's not half of the United States, but it's enough to cause a lot of problems, to cause families to get torn apart, um, to cause transgender children to run for the hills because these folks um, got an axe to grind against us. Now, none of us transitioned or embraced who we were as a political statement about anything. It's not a trend. It's not the sensationalism that these people who have decided to pull us into the political arena and try to use us to ignite their base of anti-everybody, but especially us. And I'm going to say right up front, I don't know why politicians right now are focused on gay people, except they don't know the difference between sexualities and gender identity. So they totally collapse that, and they think we're all gay. So you have people like VP Kamala Harris, and Tim Walz saying, it's none of their business who we love. That's sexuality, people. Gender identity is who we are, not who we love. And so they're totally missing the point. And the beginning 10 to 20 pages of that 900-page nightmare called Project 2025 from the Heritage Foundation is a total out affront to transgender people, and they are using that to enact legislation just like the Nazis did in the 1930s. They wiped out the entire LGBT at the time communities in Nazi Germany. Ran them off, killed them, excommunicated them, just totally ran them out of that area. And so these people have got a hold of this. And, they tried to push this legislation, these types of things, through to, I think, President Reagan at the time in the 1980s. And it didn't take hold. There were a couple of things that that president allowed them to do, but it wasn't really beefed up. But they have been working on this since the 1980s, the Heritage Foundation. It was called something else at the time. I'm going to have to look that up, and I'll probably put it in the description when I find it, what their name used to be versus what it is now, Project 2025. And the dump, Cittadini, President number 45, is using that to, he made a deal with those people that if they donated money to him, he would promote them, the Heritage Foundation. Most of the people who put that Project 2025 together was his administration. Most of those people that put that together is from his administration. So he's definitely using that playbook from being a dictator to a whole bunch of other shit. So anyway, let me get back to why I'm making this video. These people, these Massachusetts misinformed parents, decided on August 19th to write an article about Griffin when he passed on July 23rd. And that's all I found out about that young man. And they even lied about when they created that article. They said it was only a couple of weeks. No, the previous weekend is what they said, when, at least 3 weeks had passed. They did not let the family grieve. They did not respect his pronouns. They called him she throughout the whole doggone article. I didn't even want to read it. At first, I didn't. I read a couple paragraphs and I stopped and said, this is bullshit. So I put it, by myself, I put a link, I put comments in that article saying, this is the worst article I've ever seen, anti-trans article about a trans man. And all you people talking about is an excellent article are full of shit. This is not an excellent I said excellent article, my ass. I think that's what I said. And then I left it alone. Of course, most of the people in there were praising that article for being its accuracy, and they said that Griffin passed from bottom surgery. From bottom surgery complications. Now listen, unless you are someone who's seen the full autopsy, you don't know what that man passed of. He had some health issues, but he also had one of the worst doctors. Oh, geez, I did not write that down. Okay, that will be in the description, who that doctor is, because that surgeon needs to be known within the, for the trans community, so people stay away from him. They mishandled his post-op care. They weren't calling him back. And I found this out because I kept circling around looking for information about him, and I found him on TikTok through another media platform. And he was kind of telling his story of what they did, what they didn't do for him. Bottom surgery, phalloplasty, is a very complex surgery. In the United States, for the most part, that surgery is done in 3 phases, and you have to wait 6 months to a year in between phases to make sure everything's okay. Those people wouldn't call him back. He had issues, he had problems, they weren't keeping tabs of him. And on my own, because of what I heard and then what I saw on another platform, I deduced that he did indeed pass from bottom surgery complications. But see, the way these people wrote that article, they were saying, oh, GCS is terrible, and our kids are gonna, bump into this and da-da-da-da. First of all, kids can't have this kind of surgery. And of the states that can, they have to get parental consent. Now, Mr. Griffin was 24 years old when he passed. I'm sorry, Mr. Sivret. He was not a child. He did not begin that surgery as a child. But he may not have known the correct questions to ask, how to vet the surgeon, which happens a lot, for us when we're going out there. It doesn't happen for me because I am very detail oriented and I ask a lot of questions, and I'm, even the best surgeons, I'm not going to trust them alone and what they tell me. I've got to be asking the right questions in order to make sure the aftercare is going to be good. For instance, the first phase of phalloplasty, for the best doctors, for the doctor that I want to do mine, he requires you to be in the area for 6 weeks. First 6 weeks after surgery. And you're actually in the hospital for 1 or 2 weeks. Something like that. Can't remember what it was, 1 week or 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks. Because they want to check out everything that's going on with you. Then, they want to be right there on the spot. Then you can leave and check into a hotel if you're not in your local area. But you must stick around and go to attend doctor's appointments for phase 1. Phase 2, you have to stay in the area about 4 weeks. And maybe in the hospital for 2. Now, I'm not going to break down what happens during these phases. If that interests you, you can go look it up yourself on Google. You can Google search that. And then phase 3, you're in the hospital you have to stay in the area for a couple weeks. Maybe in the hospital for a few days. But that is basically it for phalloplasty. Now, if the surgeons aren't doing it that way, something is wrong. You need to be asking questions. You need to be asking questions about healing time. Now, of course, there were people in that stupid article that were like, you can't get no penis, you'll never be a man, all that bullshit. We know going in and coming out that it's not going to be a replica of a cisgender male penis. We already know that. We're not doing it to, we're doing it to get close to what we thought was going to happen with our bodies when we were younger. That is the intention of the surgeries. The intention of the surgeries, including top surgery, which is removing the breast tissues and sculpting a male chest. Take the nipples off, resize them, put them back on to make male nipples. Bottom surgery, a lot more complicated. There's actually 2 different kinds of phalloplasty, and there's several things that go on. There's choices that you have for those surgeries. And then there's metoidioplasty, which is another bottom surgery where they do not create a phallus. They use the natal dick that we have and lengthen it, give it girth. It's not very big, it's only a couple of inches, but they also funnel the urethra through that so you can stand and pee, and just, a bunch of stuff. Like I said, I'm not going into all the things, but these people didn't know what the hell they were talking about. These Massachusetts misinformed parents. They're a bunch of hysterical parents. They're the kind of parents that these transgender kids don't need. They were bragging about preventing their children from transitioning. They were fear-mongering in that article, which is why I said something. And I do this quite a bit all around the internet. I will challenge folks even if there's nobody with me. But what I told them was that I'm not answering questions. I'm not here to educate. I'm here to blow up this article. Oh, then I got accused of, when I said that, they took it literally. Like, how the fuck are you going to blow something up on the internet? These people are so ignorant. It's like, no, that's not what was meant. Maybe you guys need some cultural lessons too. Blow it up, blew it up. It's just a black phrase. It doesn't mean you're literally going to blow up anything. But these people were so rude. And I'm also going to point at my comments, the beginning of my comments. And I told them, I am not going to talk with you further. I'm not going to tell you anything that I know until I get back up. Until I do something, which was to create an article to stir up people to come in there and also comment. So they sent a couple of people at me. One of them was some kind of a fake profile. The only thing that was in that profile was this group of people. Now on Substack, you can see what groups everybody belongs to. And when I looked at that profile, who tried to say, I'm trans and I agree with this, I said, there's no fucking way you can agree with this. If you are trans, I don't believe you. You're lying. Stop talking to me. Or I'm going to report this profile as a fake profile. And so that person went away. I think his name was Patrick. Then somebody else came in. Now, I'm trying to write this article, and I'm trying to write it with care. I'm trying to write it with all the information that I had gathered about this guy. I was fighting back because I thought it was highly inappropriate for Christians to go after a dead man a few weeks after he passed, just because he was trans, and then misgender him up the wazoo, and all the nasty things that they said about GCS. There's nothing wrong with GCS. There are surgeons out there that are taking advantage of all the money it gets them, and then not doing a good job. That was one of my fears before I even started transitioning, because one of the things I was doing was going out and looking at surgery results, and some of them were really screwed up, and I didn't want that. So it took me a little longer after I began my transition to even want top surgery. Then it took me years, 4 years at least, to even want bottom surgery. I kept going back and forth about it. It was like, I'd rather have a human transplant, but that technology got squashed because the surgeon and the scientist who had figured out a way to take everything out of a male body and put it on a trans man body got squashed. That his efforts got waylaid. I followed him for a while. He had a whole bunch of people that were volunteering for that. I didn't volunteer for that, but he had some trans men that were going to volunteer for that. But then it just died. Nobody heard anything back from that surgeon, because he had to use cadavers. And those family members, if they found out that what he was using their body parts for, they said, oh no, we're not letting you do that. So he couldn't get access to that so that he can test his method on trans men. So that's just background information. Those people that I was talking to in that article, they had no idea that I knew what I was talking about, and they didn't. They really thought they were being know-it-alls, and they invariably get the information incorrect. And so they're spreading bullshit all over the country to get other people mad at us. They are autocrats. They are Christian nationalists. They are white supremacists. And they all are being, these same group of people, especially Moms for Liberty, have managed to infiltrate the UK and other countries in Europe and abroad to get them stirred up about transgender people. So these people are up to no good. And meanwhile, because they kept sending people at me, I was getting to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to push this article and publish it prematurely before I get all the facts and all that stuff out. So I pushed it out there, and of course there were people. Now, by this time, they figured out that I wasn't playing. That I indeed was going to bring a posse and tear up that article. So you know what he did? Or they did? I don't know if it was a woman or a man. They shut down the comments, and they blocked me from being able to say anything. Oh, they shut down the comments to the article, which, partially that was okay. They had done enough damage in those comments, but it just told me that their intentions were not honorable. They were full of shit. If they didn't wait to have other transgender people come in there and make comments about that article. By this time, I had also shared it in a bottom surgery group. And that's when I got all these people upset that I said that he passed from bottom surgery complications. And they said, no, he didn't. He had kidney failure. Well, duh. That's the last thing that happens before people pass. But there's a whole bunch that happens before that occurs. And unless they're doctors or coroners, people doing the autopsy, they don't know. So screw them that they didn't appreciate me going after Massachusetts misinformed parents. They just wanted to attack somebody, and that person was me, without realizing who I am, what I stand for, what I do. I've been an activist for the trans community for the last 8 years, and they were just full of hot air, and I told them to shut up, and I blocked them from making comments on my page. But, clearly by the things that I heard on his TikTok videos, his bottom surgery went terribly bad. And there's no doubt in my mind that that surgeon just wanted the money, and then they ignored the guy. They neglected him. So they're the ones that said that he passed from bottom surgery. And I didn't have time to put things together because I was being attacked by myself. Even those people who were griping and complaining, they're free to go on to that. They don't have to go to that particular comment, that article, to make comments, because they've got a bunch of articles. So they can go to any article and say something about Griffin Sivret's article. But these people were too chicken shit to do that, and they wanted to come after me instead of going after them. When my idea to say something about him 3 weeks after he passed. It was my idea to follow the lead of the person that asked someone to speak about him, and so I went out there and did that. I did not know them, but I'm the type of person that I'm a justice warrior, and if somebody has done wrong, I'm going to go after them. I wanted to shut that place down, and if we had managed to get it together and unify, it's a joke, and gone after those people, we could have driven them off Substack. Get in there and make comments on whatever you find there. It doesn't matter. You do have to have a Substack account, but most of their articles are open to the public. There are ways to shut it down to only allow subscribers to comment and to read articles. And then you can say everyone can read my article and everyone can comment. But most of their articles, from what I was looking at before they shut me down, were open for comments. And if those people really meant what they said on that other platform, and they had any courage at all, they would stop fighting each other and go fight the oppressors. That article was oppressive. That article was Transphobia 101. 102, 103, 104, and 105. And so that's the gist of what I came here to say, that I really wasn't writing that article about Griffin as much as I was writing to warn trans men or trans men of masculine experience, whatever the hell that means, to beware of the surgeons you choose to do that surgery. It's extremely complex, extremely. I'm not even going into all of what they're doing during these phases. But it's so complex that if you don't get the right surgeon, you're gonna have problems. And if you're not healthy going in, you're gonna have problems. If you don't do certain things and that surgeon isn't checking certain things before your surgery, you're gonna have problems. If they neglect you right after the surgery, you're gonna have problems. So I went in there to warn people getting that surgery, phalloplasty, to beware of greedy surgeons and ones who aren't going to follow the real protocol. I think it's written out in WPATH. WPATH is an organization of doctors who care about transgender people. I forgot what it stands for, but again, all these things I'm saying, I'll put them in the description and you can see them there. Yeah, This is not the first time I stepped out there on behalf of a stranger. It's not. But I want to make people aware that there's these blood-sucking assholes out there who will write nasty things about you after you die. Or something horrible happens to you, like what happened to that young man. This also is what they are causing. A lot of trans people are isolated. Doesn't even matter what city they're in. They're isolated and ostracized because of the people around them that may or may not support them. Now, I did see a comment made by Griffin's father that he loved him. Oh, and that was another thing. These MIP people said was that, well, the family didn't come after us, so they must not care. They were grieving. It had only been 3 weeks before they wrote this stinking article. I also said in my article that, they may not have writers in the family. They may not have gone out and did a search on Griffin and found their article like I did. They weren't ready to deal with all that. But this is kind of crapola that was coming out of the mouths of whoever that was that runs Massachusetts Misinformed Parents. That's why I know it was just full of crap, and it was transphobic, and it was anti-trans, and it was right up these Christian nationalist alley. And then if he passed from something else, that's even worse. If he passed from something else, and they said it was because of GCS. Now, GCS has had a few acronyms. In fact, right now it's not even called GCS anymore. It's called something else. But I don't have time to keep track of all that stuff. I don't know why people keep changing acronyms and stuff like that. I was satisfied with gender confirmation surgery. Now it's something else, and I don't know. It originally began SRS, sex reassignment surgery, but that gives an indication that we're trying to do something that goes against our nature, that goes against who we are, when actually we're trying to correct something that goes along with our nature and who we are. We're trying to make our bodies as close as possible, especially for me, of what I thought was going to happen in puberty, number one. I had made up some things and thought they were going to happen, and at that time, as of the 1960s, I didn't tell anybody what I was thinking, because it even sounded weird to me, because I'd never heard of anybody. I thought I was alone. I thought there was something wrong. I thought a bunch of stuff because there was no visibility whatsoever on issues like this. But I literally thought during puberty I would grow a penis, and that I was just latent. Yeah, I made that up. I made that up. And I thought that if I worked out my chest, that I would end up with pecs instead of breasts. I didn't know I was less than 13. 10, 11, 12. From the age of 8 is when I saw a penis for the first time. Some little nasty boys in the playing hide and go seek, and I ended up with them, and they exposed their penis to me in the bushes. And I wasn't that impressed by what they showed me as much as I looked down at myself immediately and said, where's mine? See, so I had an awareness at that time, but I didn't have anybody to bounce the stuff off of. I'm pretty sure if I had told my parents, they would have put me in the nut house. Because back then, and it's been debunked, they considered things like that mental illness. Remember that movie, Boys Don't Cry? That one indicated that it was some kind of an illness. Not that it was just something that we are and that has been going on since birth. Our mind is one way, our body is another. Been going on since birth, just like gays, lesbians, bisexuals, People like that, th- they're not reading anything to become that way. They're not influenced by anybody to be that way. It's just a fact of life for us. It's just too bad society is othering us instead of considering us, part of mainstream society. Me liking women was just something that was there. I didn't create that. And I didn't go through some kind of trauma that created that. You don't direct your body who to be attracted to. You can't force that. You don't direct that. It's just there. Now a lot of people back in the day, they were committing suicide. Not because there was anything wrong with it, it's because society said there was something wrong with it. And their parents and their co-workers and their family and their friends and all this pressure not to be who you are. And that's why people end up with mental illness behind this stuff. It isn't what we are, it's these people around the country who put so much pressure that it becomes an issue. If not for that, we'd be happy campers, just living our lives, minding our own fucking business, like Tim Waltz says. But they do need to change. What time is it? Okay. They do need to change how they're talking about this, because they're not talking about trans people. They're just lumping us all together and making it sound like we're gay. No, I'm heterosexual. I'm a male and I like women. Unless in their minds they're thinking, oh, no way, that could that be? Really? Then you don't understand transgender people and who we are. You need to do a little bit of research, a little basic trans 101 to figure out that it isn't a sexuality. It is not a sexuality. Because you can be trans and gay, trans and bi, trans and lesbian. Yeah, for transgender women. You can be all the sexualities inside of gender identity. Gender identity is not all the rest of them. We just got lumped in and othered with them because that's what people do. That's what mainstream society does. They're weird, they're this, they're that, so they must be part of them. Throw that in there. The T got created in the 1990s. Is when T entered into the LGBT. And there have been transgender people for decades and decades and decades, maybe centuries before that. I saw on record a king, or maybe it was a queen, who was trans. But they didn't have that word for it back then. But by the description of who they were talking about, it was clear to me that they were trans of some nature. Because they would come out acting and dressing like a female while the body was male, and nobody messed with her because she was queen. Some country in Africa, I believe. By the way, the Moms for Liberty is headed up by Tiffany Justice, and she has been running her mouth for a long time, grouping up with all of these fear-mongered individuals and organizations and businesses that they're glad that even Trump lied in the debate about transgender kids going to school and coming out a different gender. That is not even possible. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But she knew it was a lie. And Tiffany Justice said she was glad that he lied because they just want to stir up the base. Now, it so happens that they're losing the interest of a lot of people because they keep doing and saying all of these ridiculous things about us. But yeah, they're losing elections in their state and all sorts of things like that. And if you ask me, we need to treat Massachusetts misinformed parents. We need to treat them the same way as Moms for Liberty. The thing is, there's too many cowards in this country that aren't doing anything but rolling over, getting fearful, getting anxious, doing, all of these messed up feelings behind this instead of fighting back. I fight back. That's why I don't feel all those things. Because I do something. I don't just say something, talk, and then do nothing. What's that going to do for you? And if you're waiting for somebody else to do it, shame on you. Shame on you. Because there's not enough people behind the activists for them to make a dent in this. Y'all got to be behind us that are willing to go out on a limb. Y'all got to come with us. And if you're too afraid to do that, shut up. Don't complain, don't say anything. Because you're whining and you're not willing to do anything for your freedom. Nothing. You're looking for somebody else to save you, to save us. Well, I can't do it by myself, and neither can any of the other activists out there. Yeah, people follow them around, but when it comes to doing things, they're not doing anything for the activists or for themselves. There were like 2 groups on Substack that are from Moms for Liberty. So they've got money and they've got their probably their own website to stir up crap. Because the only ones I found were from South Dakota and Pennsylvania. I think Mr. Sivret might have passed in Massachusetts, but he's from, where is he from? Well, when I find that out, I'll also put that in the description. I want to give as much information as possible so that if people find their balls, if people find their nerve, if people find their guts, if people find their courage, they can go do something about that group who should have never, ever, ever released an article like that was so full of shit, just to get their base stirred up with lies. I'm so tired of that. We are letting these, I call them GQP, they're crazy, GOP, GQP, whatever. We're allowing them to normalize lying. And then they call themselves Christians, yet lying is a sin. And they're just doing it boldly and like, we don't care. We don't care if we go to hell. That's what, I'm not religious, but I have studied religion. Just like back in the day, Malcolm X and characters like that they also read the Bible. What's that dude that's still alive? Crap. His name is falling out of my head. But he's a Muslim, and he'll talk about things that are in the Bible, even though he reads the Quran. That's what he practices, is the Quran. So, really, this all got this way because people took their eye off of these evil kinds of characters. And then when they popped up, nobody wants to do anything but run from them. I'm not afraid of anybody. But I don't have an army. Because I get all these flaky people who say they admire me, but they don't. They've got some issues going on about me. And so they don't. No, they got issues about themselves, and they project it onto me. When that ain't where I'm coming from. That's where they're coming from. And so I be dropping people left and right because I ain't got time for bullshit people. I don't. I have a very definitive amount of time left on this planet, being it that I'm 67 today. And I don't have time to play games with people, with trans people. Um, I don't have time for that. And then play the games with the moral majority. And they're not even the majority, the moral minority. They're a minority group of people. But they've got power, they've got money, they've got everything it takes to ram this crap right down everybody's throats, while saying that we're the ones that are trying to ram our identity down their throats. No, we're not. We were minding our own business when this crap came out of nowhere. Started by none other than 45. Went after transgender people in the military. It's one of the first things that asshole did when he got in office. So don't tell us we're ramming it down your throats. No, we're only telling you to leave us the fuck alone. Stop the bullying. Stop the attacking. Stop the violence. And the only way we could do that is to speak up. And speaking up is not ramming it down your throat. People got everything backwards and they lie. They lie to themselves, they lie to everybody else. Lying is becoming normalized. That ain't right. So that's all I'll say. Most of the, specific information will be in the description of this video, and you can all look at those things yourself. And I'll also put this on Substack to back up my other 2 articles. I wrote a second article attacking that group only and not really even talking about Griffin very much. So there's 2 of them out there, and then there'll be this video. And everybody, have a blessed day, enjoy your week, and I, the pollinator, will talk with you later.